Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner, brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
Hello, and welcome to the Comic Book Yeti's Cryptid Creator Corner. I'm one of your hosts, Jimmy Gasparo, and I have a returning guest, but it's a guest that I actually haven't had a chance to interview yet. Byron's been taking up all of his time. He was on the Cryptid Creator Corner 3 times in 2022, but it's been almost 2 years since he's been on the podcast. He has so much going on. You may know him from some series he's written like Port of Earth, Join the Future, The Lost City Explorers, Eclipse, Breakout, which I think was one of my favorites. I absolutely loved Breakout. Forever Forward, Metal Society, Beyond Real, Mindset, and we're going to talk about some new stuff that he is in that a few issues have been out and some stuff that hasn't hit yet. But please, welcome to the podcast, Zack Kaplan. Zack, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you. Like I said, Byron has interviewed you a couple of times, but about 2 years ago. You have a ton of stuff coming out. I think the first time I became familiar with your work was Port of Earth, which I think came out around the 2017, 2018 time period.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm a big, huge science fiction fan. Like, that's like my number one, in terms of genre storytelling. And the subset of science fiction is I'm a huge time travel story fan, which I was listening to your episode with Byron on Forever Forward. And he was like, I think his quote was like, time travel stories usually make me puke. And I was like, really, Byron? Like,
we had the wrong one. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he did like it, but I was like, I guess I should have taken that one. I had no idea. Byron, I thought we were friends, but I didn't know he had such an aversion to time travel stories.
He took your favorite one and he didn't even care about it.
Yeah. What a jerk. But yes, I think Port of Earth was the first time that I was familiar with your work, and then Join the Future. Breakout was one that I just love. I love the whole concept of it. If any listeners are not familiar, it's essentially like these alien like cubes come down and they are kidnapping like kids. And one kid in particular, the main character, has to figure out a way, because they take someone close to him to kind of break them out. So it is like an alien kidnapping, like, but it has the dynamic of like a heist story.
That's right. Yeah, prison break heist sort of.
Yeah, it is so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, the art in it is fantastic.
Wilton Santos and Jason Wordie, fantastic. Yeah,
Jason Wordie, like just one of my favorite colorists. But Breakout is awesome. If you have not read Breakout, do that. Read Breakout, listeners, because it is fantastic. But all right, so right now, just to like catch everybody up.
Yeah.
I think when you were, we mentioned it before we started recording, but Andrew Irvin, who's the Comic Book Yeti interview editor, interviewed you on the Yeti YouTube channel about Beyond Real. I think that was like last year when that started coming out, and the trade of that is coming out. We might touch on that a little bit, but really Andrew did a pretty good job with you guys going through it. And that is a really great series as well. I particularly, just to touch on it, I really like, and how many different artists have worked on that series with you, but just some of my favorites. I mean, names like Dennis Minier, Jorge Corona, Luana Vecchio, Liana Kangas. I mean, you have some fantastic artists on Beyond Real, and I think the trade of that is coming out soon. So if you haven't read that, that's a Vault series, and it's so good. Really enjoyed it. But you're right in the middle. 2 issues have come out. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll be like 2 weeks before issue 3 of Kill All Immortals drops.
Yeah.
And then one of the thing I'm most excited to talk about is Dark Empty Void. It's you and Chris Shehan, and I'm a huge Chris Shehan fan. Their work, on the Autumnal is wonderful.
Amazing.
So you and Chris, the rest of the team, doing a like black hole science fiction. It's been described as Annihilation, meets Alien, which I absolutely love. So issue 1 of that drops September 11th. So if you're listening to this when this episode first comes out, you'll be able to like walk into your comic book shop tomorrow and it's on the shelf. And if it's not there, tell them you want to order it, because if they still have copies at the distributor, your local shop will get it for you. And then we're also going to talk about the Midnight. I want to say the Midnight Shadows, but
Midnight Shadows. Midnight Shadows.
Yeah. I mean, that's that concept. That sounds wild. I want to get into that as well. And you sent me the first issue, and I loved it. But I want to start with Dark Empty Void. Because that's the thing that's dropping next. So this is and also because, full disclosure, I'm a huge Mad Cave fan as well. So this is a Mad Cave series.
They're killing it. That's right.
They're this year, their 10th anniversary year. I feel like they're just going all out. And I have had a slew of Mad Cave creators on the podcast. I've just been loving like so many things that they put out. I was just on like a TikTok the other day, just because I wanted to tell folks for like the 8 people who follow me on TikTok because I'm an old man, but I did want to say how much I'm
not even on TikTok, so you're already there.
I wanted to talk about Morning Star and When the Blood Is Dried, which are 2 great series. But yeah, so Dark Empty Void, you and Chris Shehan, it's like a secret facility is trying to create like a black hole.
Yeah.
And as sometimes happens, things go awry. So, why don't you just tell the listeners, because they are tired of hearing from me, about Dark Empty Void and you and Chris working together.
Yeah, it's basically asking the question of black holes are one of the greatest mysteries of the cosmos. And I feel like the more we learn about quantum physics and about astrophysics, the less we understand black holes. And, there is, it's possible. It's not out of the crazy town that we could start to try to play around with that. It'd be a very bad idea, but
it doesn't seem great.
It doesn't seem like a good idea, but that hasn't ever stopped humanity from doing. I mean, we got AI and robots. Everything that we say don't touch, we seem to touch the rail. So as the colliders get bigger, it's not far-fetched that we will start to play around with this. And so this premise is what would happen if we did create a stable, microscopic even black hole in one of these colliders, and it basically all hell breaks loose. The black hole explodes with cosmic energy. They lose control of it, and things start to come out, basically. And the most surprising thing that comes out, besides all this cosmic chaos and energy and matter and potentially even, creatures, the most crazy thing that comes out is a human stranger, a human teenage girl comes out, and they don't know what to make of it. So they bring in one of the scientists, estranged wife, who's a psychologist. Her name's Joy, and she comes in to basically help them make sense of this stranger and all the crazy things that the stranger is saying and what's going on. And they quickly find themselves in a race against time to, solve this mystery before they completely lose control of the black hole and it swallows up Earth. So it's a very exciting sci-fi adventure. They're going into the kind of cosmic maelstrom that is circling around the black hole, and they're going into these tunnels that are charged with all this cosmic energy to try to get to the center of this thing and solve the mystery. So in that regard, it's very much Annihilation. It's very much Aliens into terms of going into that. And it's my first foray into cosmic horror and into horror at all, really. And, just having a blast, playing around in this world, and amazing creative team. Chris Shehan and Francesco Segala does our colors, and World's Justin Birch does letters. And yeah, it's a beautiful book. It's a really suspenseful book. If anyone's familiar with Chris Sheehan's work, whether it's Autumnal or House of Slaughter, just really great horror artist, and just kills it on this book.
I mean, the first issue, I've only read the first issue so far. And I mean, what I loved about it was it's very grounded, and I think a lot of good horror does that very well, where you have, and you really grounded your characters as well. You talk about, I think it's Coulson and the Joy. Yeah, right. I was thinking Frank, and I'm like, I think that's her last name.
It is Joy Frank. Yeah, Dr. Joy Frank. Yeah.
But Joy is a lecturer, and she's kind of brought in by Coulson. You said they're estranged, but all of those like little details, and you spend quite a bit of time with Joy. It's a brilliant opening where you see kind of what's going on in this facility, which I believe is in Alaska, and I don't want to spoil it exactly, but it definitely seems like it's that kind of talking about one thing, and then it's revealed in a few pages that it's kind of talking about something else, and the words and the art just kind of come together beautifully in that opening. But the fact that they're estranged, that we see in a few panels how Joy reacts to like Coulson calling her. Chris Shehan does great with the facial acting, and like all of that kind of comes together to create like a realistic three-dimensional person who is now thrust into this like crazy situation. And the whole, opening act, issue 1 of this comic sets everything up so beautifully. I have no idea what happens in issue 2, but by the end of issue 1, I was in. Like, 100% in. And there were, I hear different things when someone says like a comic or a story or, a movie is this meets this. I never mind that. I always think it's like kind of good to get like a touch tone for whether or not it's like inspiration or get a feel for something. And I just want to say, with the idea of Coulson and Joy and kind of being like estranged and being stranded somewhere and there's some other presence, I was getting strong like the Abyss vibes with like Ed Harris. And I was just like, let's go. This is messy and it's weird, and you just have this presence that you feel through Chris's art of this black hole. I just thought the tension in it builds so wonderfully, and it just is so filled with potential. This first issue, cannot wait to see where it goes. Yeah, but yeah, it's getting strong the Abyss vibes.
Very much. Abyss is one of my favorite movies. Definitely watched it again, even in researching this, and absolutely, I'm very proud to say that we're putting a little bit of that into the recipe as well. And I love sci-fi stories that have complex characters. I mean, those are just the best. The characters that are just getting tested, characters that are going into crazy situations and you don't know if they're up for the challenge. I mean, Joy is a mess when we meet her, and it's just so fun to watch her come into this situation and tell it like it is and challenge everything, and yet still be completely out of her element, over her head, and you don't know if it's going to pull together or not. I'm not saying whether or not this series is a tragedy or not. You don't know if it's going to end up well or not. You don't know how it's going, and so I think that there's a lot of fun to be had. But she's a great character, and you kind of really attach to her. And Chris does an excellent job of kind of bringing her to life, and it's something that he does in Autumnal, and it's just phenomenal. And so seeing Chris do it again here, it's a fantastic character. I think that you need that grounding in a story like this, especially since we're going crazy with the idea that a black hole has exploded and crazy stuff's coming out. That's not a grounded idea. So we're grounding it with this really authentic, complex character story.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it makes sense. As much as I like something like The Thing, where you have the a horror story where it's like a single location, everyone is kind of trapped there, where you have the strangeness of the black hole, and you kind of have this new character there. I as a reader, to kind of deal with the mystery and like what is that exactly going on here, it really helps to have somebody from the outside coming in rather than setting the story with somebody. If you had set it from Coulson's perspective, like right off the jump, I think the fact that we kind of see the opening and then we go back to Joy, and then kind of are brought in with her, I feel like really aids the tension, but also kind of helps the reader, because you feel like, well, I got somebody on the inside now. I got Joy. I'm in it with her, and I'm seeing it through her eyes. As a storytelling technique, I think it really makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think there's something to be said about exploring the unknown and exploring that mystery and exploring science fiction with someone we can relate to. And so, it's a lot of fun to bring her in. We have our science types along for the ride. We have our military types along for the ride, but she's the touchstone that we keep coming back to, and she's gonna be trying her best to figure out how to solve this. And it's quite a mystery. I mean, I don't think readers know what to expect in the best of ways, and I think that we will have them guessing and have them on the edge of their seats. And so it's a really nonstop twisty turny series. It's great.
Yeah, I can't wait for issue 2. With all the science fiction series that you do, I'm kind of curious, are some of these things just kind of like a way to tell your story, to use science fiction to kind of, tackle a problem today and talk about it in a fun, interesting way? Or do you how much research do you really do when you're like, oh, I got this great idea for like a black hole, and then do you dig into
I dig into the science a lot. And I mean, the science, I dug in, and we try to use some of the science of, black holes. I mean, black holes are crazy. They'll eat stars and then evaporate and nothing is left. It's some strange things going on, and space and time completely flip. Gravity doesn't follow all the rules. So I definitely like to nerd out and do the research and then try to infuse the story with some of that. But I think, I mean, most of all, I came up with the story during the pandemic, and it was very much the cynicism and hopelessness of feeling, the world around you. And it's a theme that I love to explore again and again, but kind of hope versus cynicism. And it felt like a perfect analogy and metaphor for black holes, because are black holes just terrible monsters, or do they lead to something more? Is there something more magical to them? And I think that, like life in general, you either find a way to be optimistic or you find a way to be pessimistic, but either way, you're on the same journey. And so trying to take some of those kind of themes and put it into this kind of sci-fi adventure about black holes, that's definitely, I think, what was on my mind, bringing this story to life and getting into the weeds on it.
Yeah. I think with, cosmic horror, and I certainly have some things that I do enjoy, something like a movie like Event Horizon, and, the comics play around in the certainly the cosmic horror, or something like Cthulhu. One of the things about, using black holes rather than something like an eldritch god or some other type of entity is that it's real. I mean, I think one of the times I had a panic attack was I just happened to see a headline from like a Popular Science or Popular Mechanics article that was like, what would happen if a black hole came within such and such of Earth? And it's like, oh, shouldn't have read that.
Yeah,
that ruined my day.
Yeah, it's a really interesting phenomenon. And I mean, on the one hand, you could say, okay, if we opened up a black hole, it'd probably just suck us in instantaneously. But then there's another factor. If we're all going into what happens when you go into a black hole? I mean, is it the end? Is that what happens? Does the matter just, the matter is still going through the black hole. Is it being compressed? Is it just being collapsed? What is happening? We don't know. We do not know what happens to energy and matter when it goes in. And so the rules are kind of out the window. And like any good science fiction, you kind of have to have one suspension of disbelief. And so the suspension of disbelief here is, what if a black hole doesn't operate by any of the rules and we don't know what to expect? And if you come in with that, then, you've got quite an interesting monster that we've unleashed and everything that goes with it. And so, but I like to ground the science. I'm asking audiences to take one leap of faith with me, like the sun will burn you alive, or, right. Aliens have come with a business deal. But then everything else, I try to be as grounded as I can.
When I first read the concept, though, because you just mentioned it for Port of Earth, I was just like, oh, yeah, like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about different movies and things here but like, I love the idea of, Close Encounters or an alien movie like that. But yeah, the idea that they come with like a business plan, like that is just,
it's very obvious that that's what will happen too. I mean, that's the only thing that could happen. I don't know why we always think that aliens are going to be either enlightened or just monster invaders. Like if you really look at if they're human, if they're anything like us, they're coming with a deal. That's what they're gonna. I mean, that's what humanity would do. Humanity would not come and be like, we enlighten you, nor would we come and just be like, we're taking your stuff. We would come and be like, well, let's talk, let's work something out. Like that's all of human history. So that was the idea in Port of Earth was to, what if aliens were like us, essentially. Fantastic series, and
thank you, hooked me from the jump, from the concept. Well, let's kind of take a slight turn from science fiction, I guess, to Kill All Immortals. Issues 1 and 2 are out, and I think it's you and Fico Asio, Thiago Roca, and Hassan Otsman El Hal. The four. It's a Dark Horse series. Issue number 3 will be out September 25th. And I had seen some of the covers for it when it was coming out. I hadn't had a chance to read it yet, and I think I'm on your newsletter I had mentioned before we started recording. But I read issues 1 and 2, and again, fantastic concept. Essentially, I think the main character is Freya, and it's kind of revealed that her family are not, who you would suspect. And they've been around for a very, very, very long time, and are they're very shrewd business people, to say the least. Was it a great departure for you to kind of play in this? This is kind of more of like action adventure fantasy. Did you feel like that was a stretch for you, or was this something you were like really itching to do?
I don't think it was a stretch, but it was something I had not done, I think, and it was definitely something I wanted to do. I mean, I guess I am interested in kind of growing and taking chances as a creator. I mean, Beyond Real was a huge, complete departure in terms of doing something completely surrealist with 7 different artists. Now taking on horror for the first time, and then Kill All Immortals is my most action-oriented series. It's a little bit, it's off of science fiction and a bit more like supernatural, more just standard genre. And I've oftentimes helmed stories by protagonists, but never by an action hero in this way. And so, it was a departure from my other work for sure. And it was really exciting for me to step into this arena that I had never done before. But I feel like, at the end of the day, I still tried to bring a lot of the same stuff that I bring to any series, which is a really fascinating world, a really cool high concept hook that makes you feel like you haven't seen it before, but it makes sense. And I think a lot, we were just talking about Dark Empty Void, grounding a story in authenticity. And so the premise here is that we've got a family. I think everybody's aware of the basic terms. It's Immortal Vikings. It's Immortal Vikings, and they're living present day, and they're a billionaire family, and they're fighting, and the daughter is fighting against the family. But I think one of the real things that we wanted to do here was make this story feel modern, make it feel, just as real as you could make it feel. And so, whether it's the sets, to the costumes, to the way that we're portraying everything, to the fights, this is as if the family in Secession suddenly picked up Viking weapons and went to town against each other. So style and aesthetic was really important. And, we worked with Tom Muller on the logo and the design, Oliver Barrett on our A cover series, and Fico and Thiago do an absolutely amazing job with the artwork of just bringing you into that world. And, really proud of the series, of the look of it, of the action is just phenomenal. And then I think there's this really interesting character story here that's also, I think, pretty modern, because this character Frey is she's immortal. She's been around a long time, and she's kind of growing with the times. And so she's finding herself for the first time kind of looking at her family and her situation with a 2024 lens that she hasn't done that yet. And so it's kind of looking at how we all evolve and change over time, and how we handle these kind of things differently. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to write a character like this.
One of the things I noticed, and I don't think any of the series that I've read of yours that you've written and the artists that you've worked with, I don't think any of the stories ever lack, action. But this certainly, I think, is like the bloodiest maybe that you've done. Like, I mean, it is bloody. The action scenes are, I mean, they're great. The fight choreography in it it's so good. And it's you always kind of know what's happening. It's like it's all there on the page. It's not, nothing's being hidden. You're not, not taking any like tricks or anything with it. It's like all there. And I mean, they get better.
I have to tell you, what's
so
crazy,
good.
The fight sequences coming up in issue 3 are absolutely incredible. They will blow your mind, as great as 1 and 2 are. It gets better. I just saw the final pages for 4. Absolutely amazing. So we're taking the fight choreography and the fight dynamic very seriously. We continue to try to just bring really exciting locales and energy to it. But I think what's really, also behind it is that the violence of the fights are thematic. They're built into the character because these are Vikings and this is a power struggle. And so every fight becomes a really important dramatic beat in this story. This is about characters going to war with each other, and the violence manifests itself as to just how these characters handle aggression and how they try to, control and dominate each other. And so it has relevance. It's not just gratuitous. But yeah, it is violent for sure. Yeah. Definitely my most violent.
Yeah. I mean, and the interesting idea of, with characters like this that have been around for hundreds of years, like, do they change with the times, and how do they change? And when you're around long enough that you can amass such like huge amounts of wealth and control and influence, but there is still something of their Vikingness, I guess, to them. I just thought it was great. And there were a couple of little moments in it that, I mean, I love the action scenes, but Freya is joined by someone who's doing a story on her, it was Jabari.
Owen, he's a journalist. Yeah.
Okay. And he is a journalist. That's exactly what I was going to say, where one of Freya's brothers says something, I think in the first issue, about him being
reporter,
a journalist or a reporter. And he goes, well, I think I'm more of a journalist. And he goes, is there a difference? And I just thought, like, man, that was like, it's just a little moment, but like you kind of set up that dynamic and that tension between those two characters, like, right away. It's aggressive in a totally different, we're not using swords yet way, Oh
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexing going on. And I mean, that's the cool thing. I mean, the violence is saved at times too. Like, it gets violent, but everybody in the family talks with such intention and such power. And you can really feel it. And definitely in the writing and the storytelling, we work to make sure that you can feel each character trying to control the situation. And the first issue culminates in a really dramatic scene where everyone is trying to control each other. But then there's this whole dynamic about journalism in here, because journalism and social media and the internet, like, if you look at it in in a past 25 years sort of thing, they've really changed and evolved. And so this family has been living in the shadows, living in secrecy, dominating the world and accumulating all this wealth and power. But the world is changing. And so this is kind of a question of like, how does that changing world, how does introducing a component of journalism and introducing the component of technology, how does this family handle those sorts of things? And so again, trying to stay modern and trying to keep it relevant. It's a lot of fun to kind of explore that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciated that aspect to it. That whole conversation between Owen and the rest of the family there at the table, and that little quip that the Owen and the one brother had. I can't know if it was Stein or Leaf,
I think which I can't. Yeah, is it who says? I think it might be Stein.
But that whole conversation they have about journalism and reporting, and the family saying like, oh well, would you want to work like for us, like maybe we'll have our own news, and they have this, they basically you're ramping up the tension at this table. And for a comic that has so many great action scenes and bloody action scenes in the first two issues, you really have this tension ratcheting up where they're kind of having a conversation about, like you said, the future of journalism, the 24-hour news cycle, the fact that it's only like a few families or people that own these companies that now, give us the news. And just very quickly in a couple of panels, like it's tense.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're having this fundamental conversation about who controls like the narrative, who controls the truth. And then it goes off the rails, and it's just, I mean, it's wild. So good.
Yes. I don't want to spoil anything. The first issue definitely ends with some fireworks, but and it's a testament to the creative team. I mean, Fico is 1 minute drawing crazy fights, and amazing layouts that show off the fight, the choreography, and then we've got these really amazing character tense moments that you can feel the power and the energy. So it's just been an absolute blast to kind of to work on this series and bring all that to life. And I mean, the fight that comes is sometimes the fight begins with the words, and that's the fun thing to do in the comic is to play with the fight before the weapons are drawn.
Right. Yeah. But you're saying Fico's like artwork is really tremendous.
Great. Yeah.
He was on that series. What is it? No One Left the Fight with Aubrey Sitterson, right?
That's right. It was a 2-volume series at Dark Horse as well, and he's also done Mr. Miracle, and just got announced on the new Black Lightning series at DC.
Yeah,
and has done Action Comics. So some great DC stuff, and just an amazing artist. But I really think that Fico is shining, on this book, and I'm very excited for everyone to continue to just see how impressive his artwork is.
Yeah, I thought it was great. So again, cannot wait to see, where that one goes. And like I said earlier, issue 3 is going to hit September 25th.
And I will tell you, issue 3 will blow you guys away. If you are reading this and you are hooked, do not miss issue 3. That's all I'm going to say about it. Don't decide that you're trade waiting. Get issue 3 because it's a good one.
All right. So that's you've been warned.
Yeah.
Kill All Immortals, issue 3.
You're definitely going to need issue 3. You're going to see some people going online about it. It's a good one.
Well, that's good enough for me. Because and that plus issues 1 and 2, which were great. And so another Dark Horse book that you have coming out in October.
Yeah,
I think the first issue is dropping October 2nd, and
it's a full graphic novel.
Oh, it's a full graphic novel.
It's fully collected. Yeah. So you read the first chapter
I guess,
of that, but it's a fully collected. It comes out all as one.
Okay, great. Yeah. It's called The Midnight Shadows. So I think you're working with artist Stephen Thompson on this one.
And Janoy Lindsay. We've got Stephen Thompson does a bulk of it, but Janoy Lindsay does some artwork as well for us.
All right.
And then Thiago Rocha is our colorist, and DC Hopkins is the letter on.
Oh, great. Oh, that's awesome. I like DC's work. That's fantastic. So tell listeners about what the concept of the Midnight Shadows, because I was very curious about this, and I was also listening to the Midnight. I was not familiar with, but tell me
amazing.
about it.
They're amazing. Yeah. So the Midnight is one of the largest synthwave bands in the world. They have 1 million listeners on Spotify. They play shows all over the world, and they're amazing. They're really synthwave, nostalgic, kind of rooted in the 80s culture and 80s and 90s culture of like technology and, computer coming up, and very poetic, about kind of growing up storytelling in the music. I've been a fan a very long time. I also happen to know the band. And long story short, we decided to collaborate on a graphic novel. But the great thing is it's an original story. If you are a fan of the Midnight, you will absolutely geek out over the connection to the music. But it is really a reflection of the music's themes and kind of elements that the music explores. So if you have never listened to music, I feel very comfortable in saying, pick this up as if it was any other comic series from me. It's a sci-fi adventure. It's about a young man who's kind of on the precipice of fatherhood here in our world, and, kind of reticent to accept responsibility in adulthood. And then he finds, as he's cleaning out his stuff, he finds his old video game, The Midnight, and he goes to take it to get fixed, and he gets sucked in to the video game. But unlike Tron, which is loosely inspired by, unlike Tron, when he gets to this world, he discovers that he is in fact the hero of this world, and or he's told he is, and he doesn't know which world is real and which world is not real. And this is a world that is shrouded in darkness, and they want him to save them. And so it's just an incredibly fun adventure. It's really heartfelt. It's really actually got some fantastic action, absolutely amazing action, and gorgeous artwork. Stephen Thompson and Thiago Rocha just bring to life this kind of synthwave cyberpunk sort of world. It's crazy. Janoy does some amazing work in the ordinary kind of world, and it's just I cannot wait for people to read it. It's also going to be a lot of fun because when it drops, people get to read it all as one entity. Just kind of, and actually, this is the first series I've ever had come out that's talk about also pushing a little bit like everything's always been monthly. So this is the first one that's like it'll come out and people get to read the whole thing. So can't wait for people. It's first week of October. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so I was not familiar with the Midnight, but I read about it, before I read the.
But that's fine. You went in and you read the first chapter just going in for the story.
Yeah, I did, but I had looked up a little bit about the band. I think it's Tyler Lyle and Tim McEwen. That's right. And I went on Spotify, so they have 1,000,001 listeners now. Because I wasn't familiar with it, and I think I played like a couple of the song, like just whatever came up, like the most popular on Spotify, and I instantly felt like transported back. Yeah, I was just like when did this? I'm like, looking at when the album, like when the song dropped, because it has like such a nostalgic, like kind of 80s feel to it. But after listening to some of it and then reading the first chapter, I was like ready to go. I got my members only jacket. I stole a 1982 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. And I put on the song Jason, and I just rode off right down the highway.
You need to go driving. Yes. Go driving. Yes. Drive, go where you go when no one's on the road. You can just go and listen to the music. Yes.
I mean, I'm a sucker for any comic, or really anything, but a comic in particular that really like shows an old abandoned mall.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can't, you can't beat that at all.
It opens with a kind of an 80s 90s mall, but it's post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
It's beautifully drawn, and yeah, there's a lot of like touchstones, like the mall, the late night driving. Like there's a really amazing sci-fi city that they get to, but there's a lot of that kind. There's a lot of kind of nostalgic references to it, and there's something about that kind of music and about that kind of time that makes you feel like a kid again. I think that's that it's a real thoughtful look at nostalgia. On the one hand, nostalgia can transport you and make you feel young again. It can make you feel how wonderful the fantasy of shrugging off your responsibilities are, but then there's a dark side to that. The dark side is that you're neglecting the world around you. You're neglecting, responsibilities. And so it's and the midnight, when they sing songs that talk about darker impulses or influences or emotions, it is about that sort of thing, about the dangers of losing yourself. And so the Monsters, they have a song called Monsters. And so, yeah, it was really fun to dive into the music that I already knew so well, and then take out the ideas, the themes, and then create a whole story around those themes. And I collaborated with Tyler and Tim immensely. I brought them, the ideas, and we shaped it together. But really a fun experience to try to create a story that is not canon for this music, but again, I think the best word is a reflection of this stuff. And right. So if it'll be really fun. There'll be Midnight fans who completely lose it reading this book. There'll be readers like you who read the book and then maybe are so excited about the book that you go and listen to the music and go the other way. Yeah. Or there might be people who just pick up the book and go, I have no interest in the music. I just love this book. And so I'm really curious to see kind of how it all unfolds. But I think the synergy of having people come to the music from the book or to the book from the music, it'll be really exciting. Yeah,
I think so. I really enjoyed the first chapter, and I'll get it when it comes out.
Thank you.
But I was kind of curious because I know just from what I had read, either in a press release or something online from Dark Horse about how it kind of came together, and I knew that I had read that you had collaborated with Tyler and Tim from the band, and I was just kind of curious: was it something that they came to you and like, hey, Zack, we like your work. We want to do this thing. We have an idea. And then you structure a story around it. But I think you just said that you would kind of like,
so I knew Tyler before he started the Midnight, and I probably got to listen to some of the music before it even came out. And I was blown away when it came out. Like it was just coincidental that my friend just started a band with my favorite music. It's like, what? And I consequently listened to on repeat for years. And so we both kind of followed each other as I was getting into comics and having success in comics. We would just shoot each other texts and talk, and I would, tell him how much I loved the music. He would tell me how much, he enjoyed my work, and we were just going back and forth. And I think it was you ever want to do a graphic novel, let me know. And it was like, yeah, we would love to do that. And it was like this kind of appreciation of each other's work and medium became a conversation. And yeah, I came into it saying, I have an idea, and I shared the idea, and they said, this is great. And it could be this, and it can be that, and it can be this. And it was creative collaboration as the best possible way of nice. Being able to put it together and form it together. And they're not coming at it as comic book creators. They're coming at it saying, look, these are the themes that we love to talk about. These are the story elements that we find again and again as storytellers in music. And, they're more sharing their souls with me about what moves them. And then I'm taking that, I'm showing them how it can be articulated in the story, and we're building that together. So yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic experience, and yeah, it came out amazing. I'm very proud of it.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I was curious, and if it was just some, like, in building the story, how their music influenced it, and it seems more thematically, whereas, I think another way, when they do like a jukebox musical, right? So like Margaritaville, and they basically take a bunch of Jimmy Buffett songs and they figure out which ones will fit into like the story they're building, or I was kind of curious.
This is not the first music time. There's been several music graphic novels, and sometimes they drop the band in there, and the band is actual characters in the graphic novel. And to each his own. But I think we were much more interested in doing something that was just elevated and a little bit, and a little more authentic, and a little more about creating a separate experience.
Right.
For people to enjoy. And so it's very intrinsic of who the Midnight are. I mean, it is the Midnight, true, in and out, but it also stands alone as this really just amazing story about growing up and nostalgia and losing yourself. And I think those are themes that, whether you're a fan of the Midnight or not, are we can all relate to to facing adulthood, even when you're already an adult. I mean, that's the big secret. Even when you're already adult, you don't want to always face adulthood. You're like, oh man, why do I got to be an adult today? Like, I do not want to be an adult today.
Yeah, it doesn't stop until it does.
That's right.
But until it does, you have to do these things. Well, I love chapter 1. I mean, this has just been an absolute joy to finally talk to you, to steal you away from Byron, because I am a fan of your work, and
because you like time travel. That's really,
I do. I like time travel. I'll write my time travel magnum opus one day. But yeah, I like time travel stories, and but yeah, Dark Empty Void, though, I can't wait. I can't wait for people to start reading it. I can't wait to see where it goes. I really like the combination of you and Chris Shehan working together at Mad Cave. So I'm super excited about that. And if you're listening to this when this episode comes out, like I said, you can
Mad
be out tomorrow.
Mad Cave's been killing it, and it was an absolute pleasure to bring this story to them. And I mean, they've been putting out hits, and I was very excited, and yeah, it's a great series. We're really proud of it. Chris and Francesco are amazing, and it's coming out tomorrow or any day now here, and definitely go pick it up.
Yeah,
it's probably to be honest with you, it's probably going to sell out. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. So I would definitely not sit on it unless you want to go get a second printing.
Get it at your shop, find it somewhere, and then
tell your shop.
Tell your
shop
list.
That they put Mad Cave. There's still, Mad Cave needs to be on some shops' radars. If they're not ordering Mad Cave books, tell them to order.
Yeah, sure. Let them know. I love whenever I go into my local shop and I see that they got some Mad Cave stuff on the shelf. But Zach, this has just been an absolute pleasure. Dark Empty Void, Kill All Immortals, The Midnight Shadows, the trade for Beyond Real.
That's coming out probably tomorrow. Yeah.
So plenty of good stuff to scratch that science fiction itch. And if you want something with a little more violence with a capital V for Viking, get Kill All Immortals.
That's right.
Zach, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy. Always
shout out to my brother Bobby, the Cryptid Creator Corner's #1 most dedicated fan. Bobby listens to all my episodes, and I do this every episode because Bobby gets excited that I still do it. And he is definitely going to want to read Kill All Immortals. So I'll make sure that we get that for him. But yeah, thanks a lot, Zach. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jimmy.
And for Comic Book Yeti, I'm Jimmy Gasparo, and thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.